If you don't mind, you can sit here.
I don't want to interrupt.
My second seat has been empty.
Thank you.
I'm Maya.
On his birthday, the millionaire couldn't get a table at the restaurant until a single mother invited him to sit down. And what happened next left everyone speechless. Before we dive into this journey, click the like button if you also enjoy stories that warm the heart and show that the best things in life are priceless. And don't forget, your feedback is very important, so tell us what you thought in the comments at the end of the story. Ready for the story? Benjamin Hawthorne was turning 34 at that exact moment, and the only thing he wanted was a well-done piece of steak and absolute silence. It wasn't asking for much. Or at least that's what he thought when he pushed open the door of the busiest restaurant in Savannah that Friday night. The place had just opened. 3 weeks of waiting lists, perfect reviews on every rating site, and a line that wrapped around the block on regular days. Benjamin didn't have a reservation. He hadn't planned anything. He simply left the office at 9 in the evening, saw the restaurant lights, and thought the universe was finally cooperating with him. He thought wrong. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Gregory's. Do you have a reservation?" The host was a young man with a rehearsed smile and a clipboard in his hands that seemed to contain the secrets of the universe. "I don't have a reservation," Benjamin replied with the confidence of someone who had never needed one. "But it's just one table for one person." The host looked at the clipboard. Then he looked at Benjamin. Then he looked at the clipboard again, as if expecting something magical to appear between one line and another. "Unfortunately, sir, we are completely booked tonight." "Completely?" "Yes, sir." Benjamin looked around. The restaurant was spacious, well-lit, with dark wood tables and a bar in the center that seemed to have been transported directly from some old movie. There was activity, of course, but there were also empty spaces, unoccupied chairs, an entire table in the corner that looked abandoned. "What about that table over there?" Benjamin pointed. "Reserved, sir." "For what time?" "For now. But there's no one sitting there." "They haven't arrived yet, sir." Benjamin took a deep breath. It was his birthday. He had spent the entire day in meetings. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages he didn't want to answer. All he wanted was to eat something decent and pretend that day didn't exist. "Look," he tried a different approach, lowering his voice a bit as if he were about to reveal a state secret. "Today is my birthday." The host blinked. "Congratulations, sir." "Thank you. So considering the special occasion, maybe you could make an exception?" "Unfortunately, sir, we have no way to accommodate anyone without a reservation tonight, but I can put your name on the waiting list." "How long is the wait?" "Approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes. Benjamin almost laughed. Almost. But the exhaustion was greater than his sense of humor. 2 hours and 40 minutes, he repeated, just to make sure he had heard correctly. "It's an estimate, sir. It could be a bit longer. Or a bit shorter." "Unlikely, sir." It was impressive. Benjamin had already closed million-dollar contracts with less resistance than this. He had already convinced skeptical investors, difficult partners, and even an entire board of directors. But there he was, defeated by a guy in his 20s with a clipboard and an unwavering smile. "All right," Benjamin started to back away. "Thank you anyway. Would you like me to write down your name for a future occasion?" "No, thank you." He was already turning around when he heard a voice coming from one of the nearby tables. Hey, mister." Benjamin looked in the direction of the sound. A woman with hair pulled back in a makeshift ponytail was waving at him. Next to her, a small girl watched him with huge, curious eyes, holding a green crayon as if it were a paintbrush. "You," the woman pointed directly at Benjamin. "The birthday guy. You can sit here with us." Benjamin stood still for a second, processing the information. "Excuse me? There's a spare chair. We don't bite." The girl tilted her head to the side. "I bite sometimes," she corrected seriously, "but only when I'm very hungry." The woman gave her daughter a light tap on the arm. "Grace, we don't say that to strangers." "But it's true, Mom." Benjamin didn't know whether to laugh or run. The host beside him seemed equally confused, as if this type of situation wasn't covered in the training manual. "I don't want to be a bother," Benjamin said, still hesitant. "You're not bothering us. We already ordered, the food is going to take a while, and honestly, she's already told me the same story about unicorns 3 times. I need an adult conversation before I lose my sanity. Grace crossed her arms. Unicorns are important, Mom. I know, sweetheart, but Mommy needs a break. Benjamin looked at the table. Then he looked at the door. The street was dark, cold, and he had no idea where else he could eat at that hour. Are you sure? He asked. Absolutely. Sit down before I change my mind. He didn't wait for a second invitation. He pulled out the empty chair and sat down, feeling completely out of place. The girl kept staring at him as if she were analyzing a new species of animal. You're tall, Grace declared. I am, Benjamin confirmed, not knowing what else to say. My dad was tall too, but he left. The mother closed her eyes for a second, clearly counting to 10 mentally. Grace, honey, we don't need to share the whole family history with people we just met. But you said he was going to sit with us. Now he's part of dinner. Being part of dinner doesn't mean being part of the family. But it's almost the same thing. Benjamin decided to step in before the situation got even more complicated. I'm Benjamin, he extended his hand to the woman, and thank you so much for this. Really, she shook his hand firmly. Allison, and this professional interrogator here is Grace. I'm 5 years old, Grace informed him as if that explained everything. Congratulations, Benjamin replied automatically. Grace frowned. It's not my birthday, it's yours. Oh right, Allison let out a short laugh. Relax, she makes everyone uncomfortable. It's a natural talent. The waiter appeared at that moment, notepad in hand, looking at the new table arrangement with a slightly confused expression. Will you be ordering too, sir? He asked Benjamin. Yes, I will. What do you recommend? The house special is excellent. Angus steak with herb sauce, accompanied by roasted potatoes and grilled vegetables. Perfect. I'll have that. And to drink? Water, please. Just water? Allison raised an eyebrow. It's your birthday and you're going to drink water? I drove here. Fair enough, but still, sad. Mommy, what's sad? Grace asked. Drinking water on your birthday, sweetheart. But you always make me drink water. Because you're 5 years old. So what? So when you're old enough, you can choose whatever you want. Grace seemed to consider that for a moment. The waiter wrote everything down and walked away, leaving the 3 of them in momentary silence. Benjamin looked around, still trying to understand how he had ended up there. 20 minutes earlier, he was planning to eat alone anywhere that had an available table. Now he was sitting with a stranger and her 5-year-old daughter who apparently had very strong opinions about hydration. So, Allison began, resting her chin on her hand, what does a person do to end up alone on their own birthday? Works too much, apparently. Nobody called you? Family, friends? They called. I didn't answer. Why not? Benjamin thought about the answer. Because I didn't want to explain why I was alone on my birthday. Allison let out a genuine laugh. That's the most honest thing I've heard all month. You're strange, Grace declared, still holding the crayon. But nice strange. Thank you, I think. The food started to arrive. First Allison and Grace's plates, then Benjamin's. The aroma was incredible, and for a moment he completely forgot how bizarre this situation was. What do you do for work? Allison asked while cutting Grace's food into smaller pieces. Business, Benjamin replied vaguely. Business. That's very specific. It's complicated. That's fine. I work at a veterinary clinic. Nothing complicated. Just animals trying to bite me all day. Sounds fun. It's more interesting than it seems. Last week a parrot cursed at me in Spanish. Benjamin nearly choked. Really? Really. The owner was more embarrassed than the bird. Grace lifted her head. Did the parrot say a bad word, Mom? It did, sweetheart, but you can't repeat it. What bad word? Grace. Okay. Benjamin was genuinely having fun. It was strange, it was unexpected, and it was exactly the opposite of everything he had planned for that evening. The waiter returned to check if everything was all right. He looked at the 3 of them, smiled, and said naturally, It's so nice to see a family dining together these days. You make an adorable trio. Benjamin froze. Allison's eyes widened. Grace looked at the waiter as if he had just said the sky was green. We're not a family, Grace corrected with the brutal honesty that only 5-year-olds possess. He's a stranger who couldn't get a table. The waiter turned red. Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed that. It's okay, Allison interrupted quickly, clearly trying to save the guy from embarrassment. It happens. The waiter walked away, mumbling apologies, and a strange silence fell over the table. Benjamin looked at Allison. Allison looked at Benjamin. Grace continued eating as if nothing had happened. Well, Allison finally broke the silence. That was awkward. A little, Benjamin admitted. At least the food is good. That's true. Grace raised her fork. I liked him, Mom. Can we keep him? Allison covered her face with her hands. Grace, he's not a dog. I know. Dogs are furrier. Benjamin laughed. A real laugh, one of those he hadn't given in months. And in that moment, sitting at a makeshift table with two complete strangers, he realized that this birthday had just taken a completely unexpected turn. The waiter was still recovering from the embarrassment when Grace decided it was time to conduct a complete interrogation. Benjamin had barely swallowed the first piece of steak when the girl dropped her fork, crossed her arms on the table, and stared at him with the intensity of a professional detective. Do you have a dog? She fired off. No. Cat? No, neither. Fish? No. Hamster? No. Turtle? Grace, Allison interrupted, let the man eat. But Mom, I need to know if he likes animals. People who don't like animals are suspicious. Benjamin raised an eyebrow. Suspicious of what? Of being bad, Grace answered as if that were obvious. Every movie villain doesn't like animals. That's not true, Allison countered. Some villains have cats. Cats don't count, Mom. Cats are mysterious. Benjamin decided to join the conversation. I like animals. I just don't have time to take care of one. Grace seemed to consider that answer for a long moment. Okay, she finally conceded. You passed the test. What a relief, Benjamin murmured, genuinely amused. Allison shook her head, smiling. I'm sorry about her. When Grace decides to investigate someone, there's no escape. I'm very good at finding things out, Grace confirmed with pride. Last week I found out where Mommy hid the cookies, and ate them all before dinner, Allison completed. That's an accusation without proof. You had chocolate on your mouth, Grace. Coincidence. Benjamin laughed. A laugh that came from deep inside, one of those he hadn't given in months, maybe years. The dynamic between mother and daughter was like watching a live comedy with perfect timing and sharp responses. So, Benjamin, Allison turned her attention to him, you work in business. What kind of business? Investments, he replied, keeping the answer purposely vague. Investments in what? Companies, mainly. What kind of companies? Various kinds. Allison narrowed her eyes. You're good at not answering questions, you know that? It's a talent I developed over the years. My mom is also good at not answering, Grace interrupted. When I ask if I can have a pony, she never says yes or no. She just makes that face. What face? Benjamin asked. Allison demonstrated. It was a mixture of despair, forced patience, and a slight touch of someone considering running away to a deserted island. That face, Grace pointed. She makes it a lot. I can imagine why, Benjamin commented. Hey, Allison protested. I'm an excellent mother. The best, Grace agreed. But you still haven't given me the pony. Because we live in an apartment, Grace. The pony could sleep in my room. Ponies don't sleep in rooms. How do you know? Have you ever asked a pony? Allison looked at Benjamin with an expression that clearly said help. Does she always win the arguments? He asked. Always. It's exhausting. Dinner continued at this pace. Grace asked impossible questions, Allison responded with sharp sarcasm, and Benjamin found himself laughing at things he normally wouldn't even notice. It was strange, comfortable, completely off the script he had imagined for that evening. At some point, Grace started drawing on the paper the restaurant provided for children. She worked with absolute concentration, tongue out, choosing colors with the seriousness of a professional artist. What are you drawing? Benjamin asked. Our table, she replied without looking up. Can I see? Grace turned the paper toward him. There were 3 figures, a woman with brown hair, a small girl in a purple dress, and a very tall man with a confused expression. That's me? Benjamin pointed to the man. Yes, you're confused because you don't know what you're doing here. Benjamin looked at Allison. She's frighteningly perceptive. I know. Sometimes I think she reads minds. I don't read minds, Mom. I just pay attention. The waiter returned with the check. Benjamin was faster and reached out to grab it. Let me get this, he said. Allison shook her head. No way. You saved me from spending my birthday alone. It's the least I can do. We didn't save you. We invited you to sit down. Those are different things. Still. Benjamin, Allison used a firm but amused tone. I pay my own bills. I always have. Just because you showed up doesn't mean that's going to change. He stared at her for a moment. There was something about the way she said it. Without aggression, without excessive defensiveness. Just a statement of fact. A clear line she made a point of maintaining. All right, he conceded. Then each person pays their own. That I accept. Grace raised her hand. And who pays for mine? I pay for yours, sweetheart, like always. But if I pay for mine, can I order dessert? You don't have any money. I have $3 in my backpack. $3 won't pay for a dessert here, Grace. Then this restaurant is very expensive. It's a fancy restaurant. What's fancy? Expensive and pretty. Grace looked around with a critical air. It's not that pretty. Benjamin had to bite his lip to keep from laughing too loud. They paid separate bills, as agreed. When they got up to leave, Benjamin realized he didn't want the night to end. It was a strange feeling. He spent most of his time trying to make things finish faster. Meetings, business dinners, obligatory conversations, everything seemed like a race against the clock. But there, in that moment, he wanted the clock to slow down. They left the restaurant, and the fresh air of Savannah welcomed them. The streets of the historic downtown were lit up with old lampposts casting a golden light over the stone sidewalks. There were couples strolling, musicians playing on corners, the smell of coffee coming from somewhere nearby. Grace held her mother's hand and started hopping between the stones on the sidewalk, avoiding stepping on the lines. Do you live far from here? Allison asked. About 20 minutes by car. And now, are you going home to sleep? Benjamin looked at his watch. Not even 10 o'clock yet. Probably, he replied without conviction. Allison seemed to notice the hesitation. Or, she suggested casually, we could walk a bit. There's a cafe near here that stays open until midnight, if you're not in a hurry to get back to your planned solitude. Planned solitude? You were the one who said you wanted to spend your birthday alone. I said I didn't want to answer calls. Same thing. Grace stopped hopping and looked at Benjamin. You should come. The cafe has hot chocolate with marshmallows. That's a good argument, Benjamin admitted. I know, I'm very convincing. Allison smiled. It wasn't a calculated or rehearsed smile. It was something natural that appeared in the corners of her eyes before reaching her lips. Benjamin realized he was paying too much attention to that smile. So, she asked. He looked at Grace, who was now making an exaggerated puppy dog face. He looked at Allison, who was waiting for the answer with a raised eyebrow. He looked at the lit street, at the night that was still young, at the possibility of doing something different for the first time in a long while. All right, he said finally, but only because the hot chocolate has marshmallows. Grace celebrated by raising her arms. I knew you would accept. How did you know? Because nobody resists marshmallows. They started walking side by side through the streets of Savannah, and Benjamin realized this was officially the strangest birthday of his life. And maybe, just maybe, the best one too. What he didn't know yet was that this simple walk was about to change much more than just his evening. The streets of Savannah seemed to have been designed for this kind of night. Golden lights, old sidewalks, and a warm breeze that made Grace run ahead as if she were chasing invisible fireflies. Benjamin walked beside Allison, keeping a relaxed pace, while the girls zigzagged between lampposts and park benches. Does she always have this energy? He asked. Always. It's like having a small tornado living with me. And how do you survive? Coffee, lots of coffee, and pretending I know what I'm doing. Grace stopped abruptly in front of a lit storefront. A toy store, still open, with a display of dolls that looked like they came from another century. Mom, look at this one. She pointed to a doll with a blue dress and red hair. She looks like Aunt Margie. Aunt Margie doesn't have red hair, Grace, but she has that angry face. Look. Allison approached the window and tilted her head. Really, it's Margie's face when someone eats the last piece of pie. Benjamin looked at the doll. It had a severe expression, as if it were silently judging everyone who passed by. Who's Aunt Margie? He asked. My older sister, Allison replied. She thinks she knows everything about raising children, but she doesn't have any. Those aunts who give unsolicited advice? Exactly. Last week she sent me an article about the dangers of sugar. 10 pages. Did you read it? I used it to line my neighbor's cat's litter box. Benjamin laughed. That's high-level passive-aggressive revenge. I know. It's my specialty. They kept walking. Grace was now fascinated by a street musician playing guitar on a corner. She stopped to listen, swaying her body from side to side as if she were at a private concert. Can I give him a coin, Mom? Allison searched in her purse and found some coins. Here, go ahead. Grace ran to the musician, deposited the coins in the guitar case, and came back hopping. He said thank you and called me princess. You are a princess, Allison confirmed. I know, but it's nice when other people recognize it. Benjamin shook his head. Her confidence is impressive. I've been working on that since she was born. Women need to believe in themselves from an early age. The world will try to convince her otherwise later. There was something about the way Allison said that, a layer of experience beneath the casual tone. Benjamin realized she had probably learned that lesson the hard way. The cafe appeared on the next corner. A small place with wooden tables on the sidewalk and a sign that blinked irregularly. The name was simple, Coffee House. Nothing creative, but honest. This is it, Allison announced. The best hot chocolate in town according to Grace. According to everyone. Grace corrected. I just agree with the majority. They went in and chose a table near the window. The interior was cozy, with exposed brick walls and old photographs of Savannah scattered everywhere. Soft music played in the background, something Benjamin didn't recognize, but that fit perfectly with the atmosphere. The server came to take their orders. Hot chocolate for Grace, coffee with milk for Allison, and an espresso for Benjamin. Espresso at this hour? Allison questioned. You're never going to sleep. I rarely sleep well anyway. Insomnia? Mine too busy. I understand. Mine doesn't shut off easily either. Grace rested her chin in her hands and looked at both of them. You two are alike. Alike how? Allison asked. You both make worried faces when you think nobody's looking. Benjamin and Allison looked at each other. The observation was too accurate to be ignored. You need to stop paying so much attention to people. Grace, Allison said. Why? Because it's scary. But it's fun. The orders arrived. Grace attacked the hot chocolate with enthusiasm, managing to create a foam mustache in less than 10 seconds. Allison took a discreet photo with her phone. For the album, she explained. Do you have a lot of photos of her? Benjamin asked. Thousands. Literally thousands. My phone is always out of memory. Mommy documents everything, Grace confirmed, wiping the foam mustache with the back of her hand. Even when I do things wrong. Especially when you do things wrong. It's blackmail material for when you're a teenager. What's blackmail? Something you'll learn when you're older. You always say that, because it's true. Benjamin drank the espresso in silence, observing the interaction. There was a lightness there that he didn't find anywhere else in his life. No hidden agenda, no business expectations, no formality. Just two people being exactly who they were. Can I ask you something? Allison said suddenly. Sure. Why did you really want to spend your birthday alone? Benjamin thought about the answer. The real answer was complicated. It involved years of obligatory parties, corporate events, forced smiles, and empty conversations. But he didn't want to get into that now. Sometimes you get tired of pretending you're having fun, he said finally. Allison nodded slowly. I understand that. Before Grace was born, I went to all the parties, all the events. Then, I realized I preferred staying home watching movies with her than being anywhere crowded with people. Sounds like a good trade. It is, but people don't understand. They think you're depressed or antisocial. And do you explain? Not anymore. I got tired of justifying myself. Benjamin smiled. I got tired too. Grace finished the hot chocolate and started yawning. The kind of yawn that starts small and ends huge, almost swallowing the whole face. Someone's sleepy, Allison observed. I'm not, Grace protested, yawning again in the middle of the sentence. Of course not. You're completely awake. I am. Your eyes are closing by themselves, sweetheart. They're resting. It's different. Benjamin looked at his watch. Almost midnight. The night had passed faster than he imagined. I should let you two go, he said. Allison nodded. Yeah, probably. Tomorrow she has school and I have to work early. That's when Grace, in a quick move that caught everyone by surprise, reached out and grabbed her mother's phone from the table. Grace, what are you doing? What's your number? Grace asked Benjamin directly, completely ignoring her mother. Grace! Allison tried to grab the phone back, but the girl was faster, hiding the device behind her back. "We need his number, Mom. What if we want to see him again?" "We just met him, Grace." "So what? He's nice, and you liked him." Allison turned red as a tomato. "I didn't say that. You laughed at his jokes. You never laugh at anyone's jokes." Benjamin watched the scene, trying to hide his smile. The girl had relentless logic. "She has a point," he said. Allison shot him a look that clearly said, "Don't help." "Look," Benjamin continued, taking his own phone from his pocket, "I can give you my number. No commitment. If you want to have coffee again someday, great. If not, no problem." Grace extended her mother's phone toward him with a triumphant smile. "See, Mom? He wants to give his number. It wasn't me who asked." "You literally just asked, Grace, but he agreed, so it doesn't count." Allison sighed, clearly defeated. "All right, but only because you won't leave me alone until you get what you want." "That's true," Grace confirmed without any shame. Benjamin typed the number into Allison's phone and returned the device. "Done." Grace looked at the screen, checked if the number was saved correctly, and nodded satisfied. "Perfect. Now we can go." They paid for the drinks and left the cafe. The street was emptier now, with only a few pedestrians still around. The air had cooled down a bit, and Grace snuggled against her mother. "It was a good night," Allison said as they walked back to where they had parked. "Unexpected, but good." "For me too. Look, I don't usually do this. Impromptu meetings, conversations with strangers, that kind of thing. It's not my normal." "I understand, but it was nice. You're different." "Different good or different strange?" "I'm still deciding." Benjamin laughed. "Fair enough." They stopped near a modest car parked on the street. Allison opened the back door and helped Grace get in. The girl was already almost asleep. "Benjamin," Grace murmured with her eyes closed. "What?" "Mommy's gonna text you. I guarantee it." Allison quickly closed the door. "Good night, Benjamin." "Good night, Allison, and thank you for everything." She got in the car and drove off. Benjamin stood on the sidewalk for a moment, watching the taillights disappear around the corner. Then, he walked to his own car, parked a few blocks ahead. The next day, at 10 in the morning, his phone buzzed with a message. Grace insisted. "Coffee at 3? Same place as yesterday. Only if you don't have commitments with your planned solitude." Benjamin reread the message 3 times before responding. And for the first time in a long while, he canceled a meeting without thinking twice. Benjamin arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early and spent the first 10 checking his own reflection on the phone screen, trying to figure out if his hair was presentable. It was pathetic. He knew it was pathetic. But he couldn't help it. Grace was the first to appear at the cafe door, running ahead of her mother as if she were participating in a competition. She spotted Benjamin, waved frantically with both hands, and crossed the room in a straight line to his table. "You came," she announced, as if there were any doubt. "I said I would come. Adults say lots of things they don't follow through on. Mommy says that all the time." Allison arrived right behind, slightly out of breath. "Grace, you can't go running off like that," we agreed. "But I saw him, Mom, and he was alone, and he looked kind of lost." Benjamin raised an eyebrow. "I looked lost?" "A little," Grace confirmed without mercy. "Like when my goldfish looked at the aquarium glass without knowing what to do." "Thanks for the comparison." "You're welcome." Allison sat in the chair across from Benjamin, leaving Grace between the two of them. "Sorry for being late. Someone decided she needed to change clothes 3 times before leaving." "I wanted to look pretty," Grace explained. "It's a date." "It's not a date," Allison corrected quickly. "Yes, it is. We're meeting him, so it's a date." Benjamin decided not to get into this discussion. "What are you going to order?" "Hot chocolate," Grace answered immediately. "You had hot chocolate last night," Allison reminded her. "And I'm going to have it again today. It's my favorite." "You can't live on just hot chocolate, Grace." "Why not?" "Because you need other nutrients." "Chocolate has nutrients. Not enough." "How do you know? Are you a scientist?" Allison looked at Benjamin with an expression of defeat. "See what I deal with every day?" "I'm starting to get an idea." The server came to take their orders. Hot chocolate for Grace, who celebrated silently, coffee with milk for Allison, and another espresso for Benjamin. "You really like strong coffee," Allison observed. "It's what keeps me going." "Mommy too. She gets grumpy without coffee." "Grace, What? It's true. Some truths don't need to be shared with everyone. But he's not everyone. He's Benjamin. Allison opened her mouth to respond, but apparently couldn't find an adequate counter-argument. Benjamin hid his smile behind his hand. The orders arrived quickly. Grace attacked the hot chocolate with the same intensity as always, while Allison and Benjamin talked about trivial things. The weather, the cafe traffic, plans for the weekend. "Are you working tomorrow?" Allison asked. "Probably. There's always something." "You never take time off?" "Rarely. That's not healthy." "I know. But you keep doing it." "Yeah, I know that too." Grace lifted her head from the hot chocolate. "You need a hobby." "A hobby? Something you do just because you like it." "Mommy has hobbies. She likes to read and complain about the neighbors." "Grace?" Allison protested. "I don't complain about the neighbors." "Yes, you do. Last week you said the lady on the third floor is more gossipy than a television show." "That was an observation, not a complaint." "What's the difference?" "The difference is, look, drink your chocolate." Benjamin laughed. It was impossible not to laugh. The dynamic between the two was like watching a live comedy show with quick responses and perfect timing. After coffee, Allison suggested a walk to a nearby park. Grace immediately approved the idea because, according to her, the park had ducks, and ducks were better than people. "Why are ducks better than people?" Benjamin asked as they walked. "Because ducks don't ask difficult questions," Grace answered as if it were obvious. "Fair enough." The park was one of those classic savanna places with old trees, wooden benches, and a small lake where some ducks actually swam in lazy circles. Grace ran toward them, stopping at the water's edge to watch. "Don't get too close," Allison shouted. "I know, Mom." Benjamin and Allison walked more slowly, keeping Grace in sight. "She's amazing," Benjamin said. "She's exhausting," Allison corrected. "But yes, also amazing. You've done a good job." "Thank you. But it's not easy. Raising a child alone is complicated." "I imagine." Allison hesitated for a moment, as if deciding how much to share. Her father wasn't present from the beginning, so it's always been just me and her. "He never showed up?" "No, at least not until recently." Benjamin noticed something change in her tone of voice. A subtle tension that wasn't there before. "Recently?" Before Allison could answer, Grace came running back. "Mom, a duck tried to steal my shoe." "What do you mean it tried to steal your shoe?" "It came toward me and made that mean duck face." "Ducks don't have mean faces, Grace. This one did. I saw it clearly." Benjamin looked at the lake. The ducks continued swimming peacefully, with no appearance of villainy. "I think you scared it," he said. "I don't scare anyone. I'm adorable." "Modest, too," Allison murmured. They continued strolling through the park. Grace ran ahead, came back, asked random questions, ran again. Benjamin realized he was smiling more than he had smiled in months. It was strange. He was completely out of his natural environment, without meetings, without negotiations, without strategies. And yet, he felt more present there than in any conference room. "You're quiet," Allison observed. "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About how this is different from everything I know." "Different good?" "I think so." Allison smiled. That smile that started in the eyes before reaching the lips. That's when she stopped walking. The smile disappeared instantly. Benjamin followed her gaze and saw a man standing on the other side of the park. Tall, dark hair, wearing a leather jacket. He was watching the three of them with an expression Benjamin couldn't decipher. "Allison, is everything okay?" "No," she replied quietly. "That's Jason, Grace's father." Benjamin looked at the man again. He was still standing, but now had started walking toward them. "He reappeared a few weeks ago," Allison continued, her voice more tense. "Says he wants to be part of her life, after 5 years without a word." "And do you believe him?" "No, but he doesn't seem willing to accept a no." Grace, who was a few meters ahead, finally noticed the man approaching. She came running back and positioned herself next to her mother, holding her hand. "Mom," the girl's voice had lost all its earlier energy. "What's he doing here?" "I don't know, sweetheart." Jason stopped a few meters away. His gaze passed over Benjamin quickly, with a curiosity that seemed more calculated than genuine. "Allison," he said, his voice too smooth. "What a coincidence running into you here." Allison squeezed Grace's hand tighter. "It's not a coincidence, Jason. You're following us." Jason smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Following? That's a strong word. I just wanted to see my daughter." And before Allison could respond, he crouched down to Grace's height and said, "Hi, Princess. Did you miss Daddy?" Grace didn't answer. She just hid behind her mother's leg, looking at Jason the way you look at a stranger asking for money on the street. The silence lasted 3 seconds, but felt like an eternity. Jason remained crouched, the forced smile starting to waver. "Grace, it's me, your father." "I know who you are," Grace replied, her voice small but firm. "You're the man from the old photos." Jason's smile disappeared completely. He stood up and looked at Allison. "You don't talk about me to her." "I do," Allison replied with icy calm. "I show her the photos when she asks. The problem is she rarely asks." Benjamin remained a few steps back, observing. He didn't know what his place was in this situation. Probably none. But he also couldn't just leave. Jason finally seemed to notice his presence. "And you are?" "Benjamin." "Benjamin," Jason repeated, as if testing the name. "And what are you to Allison?" "A friend." "Friend?" Jason let out a short laugh. "Interesting. Allison was always very selective with friends." "Jason," Allison interrupted before the conversation went downhill, "what do you want?" "To talk." "Is that asking too much?" "Considering you spent 5 years without a single word, yes. That's asking quite a bit." Jason put his hands in his jacket pockets, assuming a posture he probably thought was casual. "People change, Allison. I've changed." "Good for you. Send a Christmas card with the updates." "I'm serious." "Me too. Very serious." Grace tugged at the hem of her mother's shirt. "Mom, can we leave? The ducks are waiting for me." "The ducks left, sweetheart. Then we can go after them." Allison looked at her daughter and then at Jason. "We're leaving now." "Allison, wait." Jason took us a step forward. "I just want a chance. A real conversation, without hostility." "Hostility?" Allison raised an eyebrow. "You show up out of nowhere, follow me to a park, and you think I'm being hostile?" "I didn't follow you." "Jason, you live on the other side of town. This park is 3 blocks from my apartment. The probability of it being a coincidence is lower than me winning the lottery." "You don't play the lottery." "Exactly." Benjamin almost laughed but held back. Allison's timing was impeccable, even under pressure. Jason took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain his composure. "All right, I admit it. I knew you'd be here. I stopped by the cafe and one of the servers mentioned you had come here." "Wonderful. Now you're interrogating cafe employees about my location. That's not strange at all. I just want to be part of my daughter's life." "She's 5 years old, Jason. 5. You missed the first smile, the first steps, the first words, the first day of school, all the sleepless nights, all the fevers, all the nightmares. And now you show up wanting to participate? As if you could just press a button and that's it?" Jason opened his mouth to respond, but Grace was faster. "Mom, he's making that face people make when they don't know what to say." Allison looked at her daughter. "What face?" "That fish face. Mouth open, eyes wide." Benjamin had to turn his face to hide his smile. The girl was relentless. Jason closed his mouth abruptly. "Look," he tried again, his voice more controlled. "I know I messed up. I know I wasn't there, but I want to fix this." "Some things can't be fixed, Jason. Some things you'd just learn to live with the consequences. She's my daughter too. Biologically, yes. In all the other ways that matter, no." The silence that followed was thick. Benjamin watched Jason clench his fists and relax, as if he were fighting an internal battle. "This isn't going to end like this," Jason said finally, his voice lower. "I have rights. You have rights you never exercised. There's a difference." "The law doesn't see it that way." "Then get a lawyer. But until then, stay away from me and my daughter." Allison took Grace's hand and started walking in the opposite direction. Benjamin hesitated for a second, looked at Jason, and then followed the two of them. "Allison," Jason called one last time, "this isn't over." She didn't respond, didn't look back, just kept walking. The walk back to the parking lot was silent. Grace held her mother's hand tightly, looking at the ground. Allison maintained a neutral expression, but Benjamin could see the tension in her shoulders, in the way she breathed. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. "No, but I will be. Can I help with anything?" "I don't know, but thank you for asking." They reached the car. Allison opened the door for Grace and helped the girl get in. "The date ended earlier than I expected," Benjamin said. "Sorry. I didn't imagine this was going to happen." "You don't need to apologize. It wasn't your fault." Allison leaned against the car and crossed her arms. "He showed up 3 weeks ago. out of nowhere. Said he's changed, that he wants to be a father, that he deserves a second chance. The whole speech. And do you believe him? Not one bit. Jason never wanted responsibility. When he found out I was pregnant, his first reaction was to suggest we not go through with it. Benjamin said nothing, just listened. I raised her alone. I worked, studied, did everything that needed to be done, and now he shows up wanting to reap what he didn't sow. What do you think he really wants? Honestly, I don't know. Control, maybe. He was always like that. When he can't get something, he becomes obsessed until he gets it. Allison's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and sighed. It's him. Third message in 10 minutes. What's he saying? That he wants to talk. That I'm being unfair. That he'll seek other means if I don't cooperate. Benjamin felt a knot in his stomach. Other means? Allison put her phone in her pocket. He's talking about filing for custody, says he has rights as a father and that he's going to enforce them. Can he do that? Technically, yes. Legally, any father can request a custody review. It doesn't mean he'll get it, but the process is exhausting, expensive, time-consuming. Grace appeared in the car window. Mom, can we go? I'm hungry. We're going, sweetheart. Allison looked at Benjamin. I'm sorry for involving you in this. It wasn't my intention. You didn't involve me. I chose to be here. She smiled, but it was a tired smile. Thank you for everything. If you need anything, just let me know. Allison got in the car and started it. Benjamin stood in the parking lot, watching the vehicle drive away. That night, he couldn't sleep properly. He kept thinking about Jason, about Allison, about Grace, about how a simple afternoon had turned into something much more complicated. And the next day, when his phone rang at 7 a.m. with Allison's name on the screen, he knew things were about to get even worse. Benjamin, her voice was shaky, he filed the petition. Officially, I just received the notification. The legal notification arrived in a plain white envelope, the kind that seems harmless until you open it and discover your life is about to turn upside down. Allison read the document 3 times before she could process the words. Petition for custody review. Preliminary hearing in 30 days. Jason Collins versus Allison Brooks. She was sitting at the kitchen table when Benjamin arrived, 20 minutes after the phone call. Grace was still sleeping in her room, oblivious to the chaos that was forming. Let me see, Benjamin asked. Allison pushed the envelope toward him without saying anything. He read quickly, his expression becoming more serious with each line. He's alleging reverse parental abandonment, Benjamin murmured. What does that mean? Basically, he's saying you prevented him from exercising fatherhood. That's a lie. He disappeared by his own choice. I know, but the law allows him to make that claim. It's up to you to prove otherwise. Allison rubbed her eyes. How do I prove someone wasn't present? Show the birthday photos where he doesn't appear? The calls that never happened? Actually, yes, exactly that. She looked at him confused. Really? Communication records, bank transfers, any documented attempt at contact. If he doesn't have any of that, his claim falls apart. What if he makes up evidence? Then it gets complicated, but it's hard to fake 5 years of absence. Grace appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair disheveled and wearing unicorn pajamas that were already getting too small. Why are you awake so early? She asked, rubbing her eyes. Allison quickly hid the envelope under a magazine. We were talking, sweetheart. Do you want breakfast? I want pancakes. Pancakes are for weekends. Isn't today the weekend? It's Tuesday, Grace. Oh, she seemed genuinely disappointed. Tuesday is a boring day. Benjamin smiled. Why is Tuesday boring? Because it's not Monday, which is the beginning. It's not Wednesday, which is the middle, which is almost the weekend. Tuesday is just Tuesday. That's a very deep analysis for someone who just woke up. I think a lot, Grace explained. Mommy says I think too much. Your mother is right. Allison prepared breakfast while Benjamin and Grace maintained a conversation about the merits of each day of the week. It was surreal. A legal document threatening her family was hidden under a magazine, and her daughter was debating whether Thursday deserved more respect. Benjamin, Grace said suddenly, do you know how to make pancakes? I do. Better than Mommy? Grace, Allison protested. What? It's a valid question. Benjamin looked at Allison. Can I try? Do you really want to make pancakes at 7 in the morning on a Tuesday? Why not? I'm already here. Allison hesitated. The situation was strange. A man she had known for less than 2 weeks offering to make breakfast for her daughter while a custody case hung over their heads. All right, she gave in. But if the pancakes turn out bad, Grace will never forgive you. Understood. The pressure is high. Benjamin found the ingredients and started working. Grace positioned herself next to him like a demanding supervisor, commenting on every move. You're mixing it wrong. Wrong how? Too slow. The batter likes speed. The batter likes speed? It's science. I'm pretty sure it's not. You don't know everything. Allison watched from the table, a cup of coffee in her hands. There was something comforting about that scene. Something she didn't know she needed. The pancakes were ready. They weren't perfect, a bit uneven around the edges, but Grace approved enthusiastically. They're good, she declared after the first bite. They're not better than Mommy's, but they're good. Thanks for the honest review, Benjamin replied. You're welcome. Honesty is important. After breakfast, Allison took Grace to school. Benjamin stayed waiting in the apartment, rereading the legal document and making notes on his phone. When Allison came back, he had a list ready. What's this? She asked. Things you'll need to gather. Financial records, proof of expenses with Grace, school history, medical reports. Everything that shows you're the primary caregiver. You really understand this? Benjamin hesitated. I know people who understand it. What kind of people? Lawyers. Good lawyers. Allison crossed her arms. Benjamin, good lawyers cost money. Money I don't have. I can help with that. No. Allison. No, she repeated more firmly. I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's help. It's the same thing. Benjamin stood up and approached her. Look, I understand you want to solve this on your own. I respect that. But sometimes accepting help isn't weakness. It's strategy. Strategy? Jason probably hired a cheap lawyer who's going to try to pressure you until you give in. If you have a solid defense from the start, he'll realize it's not worth continuing. Allison was silent for a moment. Why are you doing this? She asked finally. Doing what? All of this. Helping me. Showing up. Making pancakes for my daughter at 7 a.m. Benjamin thought about the answer. Because it's been a long time since I truly cared about something, and I care about you too. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged with something neither of them knew how to name yet. All right, Allison said finally. I accept the help, but with one condition. What? You tell me who you really are, because nobody has good lawyers in their pocket without having a story behind it. Benjamin took a deep breath. There, but this conversation is going to need more coffee. I just made a whole pot, then we're good. He sat down again. Allison sat across from him, and before he could start explaining, her phone rang. It was Grace's school. Miss Brooks. The voice on the other end was formal. We have a situation. A man showed up at the reception claiming to be Grace's father and asking for authorization to pick her up. Allison felt the ground disappear from under her feet. Don't let him get near her, she said, already grabbing her keys. I'm on my way. Allison drove to the school in record time, her heart beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. Benjamin was in the passenger seat, quiet but present. When they arrived, Jason had already left. The principal explained that he tried to convince the receptionist that he had authorization to pick up Grace, but since his name wasn't on the list of guardians, he was politely asked to leave. Grace didn't even know he had been there. This can't continue, Allison said in the car, still shaking. He's getting bolder. I know, that's why you need solid legal protection. Now. And where do I find that? Benjamin looked at her. I know a place. The office was on the 23rd floor of one of the most impressive buildings in downtown Savannah. Allison looked at the mirrored glass facade and felt her stomach sink. Benjamin, what place is this? The law firm I mentioned. This doesn't look like an ordinary office. It's not. They entered the lobby. Marble floors, reception with 3 employees, a chandelier that was probably made of precious stones. Everything screamed money in a way that made her want to run away. Mr. Hawthorne, the receptionist, greeted Benjamin with familiarity. Mr. Mitchell is waiting, conference room 3. Allison stopped walking. Mr. Hawthorne? Benjamin turned to her. I was going to tell you. Tell me what exactly. Maybe it's better if we talk after the meeting. No, we talk now. Benjamin took a deep breath. An executive walked past them, greeted Benjamin with a respectful nod and continued walking. I'm the founder of this office, Benjamin said. Not the law firm itself, but the company that finances it. Hawthorne Capital, Investments and Business Consulting. Allison was silent for 5 full seconds. You're rich? Yes. Like, really rich. Yes. And you didn't think it was relevant to mention this before? I didn't want it to change the way you saw me. And you thought hiding it would be better? At the time, yes. Now, clearly not. An employee passed by pushing a coffee cart. She smiled at Benjamin and continued on her way, completely oblivious to the tension hanging in the air. Look, Benjamin tried to explain, I spend my whole life surrounded by people who only approach me out of interest. When I met you, you had no idea who I was. And that was refreshing. Refreshing, Allison repeated, her tone loaded with irony. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you treated me as a social experiment. That wasn't it. Then what was it? Benjamin opened his mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a man in an impeccable suit who appeared in the hallway. Benjamin, good to see you. And this must be Miss Brooks. David, this isn't the best time, Benjamin said. Nonsense, you're already here. Come, the room is ready. David Mitchell was the type of lawyer who seemed to have been born wearing a tie. Gray hair, confident smile, firm handshake. He led the two of them to a conference room with a panoramic view of the city. So, David sat down and opened a folder, Custody Review. Jason Collins, let me guess, absent father who suddenly discovered he has rights? Basically, Allison confirmed, still processing the earlier revelations. Classic. I see this every week. The good news is that cases like this rarely succeed when there's solid documentation of abandonment. Do you have records? Some. We'll need more. Financial history, communications, anything that proves he didn't contribute materially or emotionally in the last 5 years. What if he claims I prevented him from participating? Then we counterattack. Witnesses, records of contact attempts on his end, which probably don't exist. Georgia law favors the primary caregiver in cases of prolonged abandonment. Allison looked at Benjamin, who remained silent. And how much is this going to cost? David smiled. It's already covered. What do you mean? It's already covered. Benjamin called me yesterday. Consider it a favor between friends. I didn't ask for this. I know, Benjamin finally spoke, but I offered. Allison stood up. Can I talk to you outside? Now. They went out into the hallway. The view of Savannah stretched through the windows, but Allison wasn't interested in scenery. What are you doing? She asked. Trying to help. Paying lawyers without consulting me? That's not help. That's control. Allison, I'm not trying to control anything. Then what are you trying to do? Make sure you don't lose your daughter for lack of resources. And in return, Benjamin seemed genuinely confused. In return for what? Nobody does this for free. Nobody. I do. Why? Because I care about you, and about Grace, and because I can help. It's that simple. Allison crossed her arms. There was something in Benjamin's expression that seemed sincere, but she had spent too many years learning that sincerity was often an illusion. I don't know if I can trust this, she admitted. I understand, but let me prove it. What if you prove it and I still can't accept it? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. Allison's phone buzzed. A message from Jason. Heard you hired expensive lawyers. Interesting. Where did the money come from? Maybe the judge will want to know too. Allison showed the message to Benjamin. He's investigating you now, she said. Let him investigate. I have nothing to hide. But I do. I have a life that doesn't fit with this world. What if the judge thinks I'm using you? Nobody will think that. You don't know that. Benjamin was silent for a moment. What do you want to do? Allison looked at the conference room door, then at Benjamin, then at the window. I need space, she said finally, to think, to process all of this. All right. It doesn't mean I'm giving up the legal help. It just means I need to understand where I fit in all of this before continuing. I understand. Do you? Not completely. But I respect it. Allison nodded slowly. I'm going to accept David's help, but you and me? We need a break. Benjamin swallowed hard but didn't protest. If that's what you need. It is. She went back into the conference room. Benjamin stayed in the hallway, looking out the window, trying to understand how an attempt to help had turned into a barrier. That night, Allison lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Grace was sleeping in the next room, safe, oblivious to everything. and for the first time in a long while, Allison wondered if she had made a mistake letting someone get so close. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was David Mitchell. Jason hired a new lawyer, one of the best in the city. This just got a lot more complicated. 2 weeks passed, and Allison's apartment had never seemed so quiet. Not that there was a lack of noise. Grace continued talking nonstop, the upstairs neighbor continued dragging furniture at inconvenient times, and the lady on the third floor's cat continued meowing in the hallway as if rehearsing for an opera. But something was missing. Or someone. "Mom," Grace said during breakfast, "when is Benjamin coming back?" Allison almost dropped her cup. "He didn't go away, sweetheart. We're just taking some time." "Time for what?" "To think." "Think about what?" "Adult things." Grace frowned. "Adult things are complicated." "They are. That's why I don't want to grow up. You'll change your mind." "I doubt it. Adults are always worried. You make that face like you ate something spoiled all the time." Allison tried not to laugh. "What face?" Grace demonstrated. It was a mixture of furrowed eyebrows, crooked mouth, and half-closed eyes. "That face? You've been making that face a lot lately." "Thanks for the observation." "You're welcome. I'm very observant." The custody petition was moving faster than Allison expected. David Mitchell was efficient, organized, and apparently tireless. He called every morning with updates, sent documents for review, and kept Allison informed of every move from Jason's side. His lawyer requested access to your financial records, David informed her during a call. "Can they do that?" "They can request it. Doesn't mean they'll get everything, but we need to be prepared." "Prepared how?" "Documenting every penny you spent on Grace in the last 5 years. School, doctor, clothes, food, everything. That's going to take forever. Welcome to the American judicial system." Allison spent the following nights organizing receipts, bank statements, and payment receipts. It was tedious, exhausting, and depressing. Each paper was a reminder of everything she had done alone. Grace appeared in the bedroom doorway one night, holding her pillow. "Mom, are you working again?" "I'm organizing some things, sweetheart." "You're always organizing things." "I know, but it's important." Grace came closer and looked at the pile of papers. "What's all this?" "Bills, receipts, school documents." "Looks boring." "It's very boring." "Then why are you doing it?" Allison sighed. "Because sometimes we need to do boring things to protect the important things." "Like me?" "Exactly like you." Grace climbed on the bed and snuggled next to her mother. "Mom?" "What? Did Benjamin help you with these boring things?" Allison hesitated. "He offered help." "And you didn't let him?" "How do you know that?" Grace shrugged. "Because that's how you are, Mom. You never let anyone help. Remember when the neighbor offered to pick me up from school, and you said no? And when Aunt Margie wanted to pay for my birthday party, and you also said no?" Allison blinked, surprised. "You remember that?" "I remember everything. The teacher says I have an elephant's memory." "Elephants don't even have that good a memory." "Yes, they do. I researched it." Allison was silent for a moment. Her 5-year-old daughter had just summarized a behavior pattern she herself struggled to admit. "Mom? What? Do you like him?" Allison looked at her daughter. The big, curious eyes waited for an honest answer. "I do like him," she admitted. "But sometimes liking someone isn't enough." "Why not?" "Because there are other things involved. Complicated things." "Adult things again?" "Yes." Grace sighed dramatically. "Adults complicate everything." "I know, sweetheart. You should be more like children. We solve everything faster." "How do you solve things?" "We fight, sulk for 5 minutes, and then go back to playing together. Simple." Allison smiled. "Maybe you're right. Benjamin kept his distance, as promised. But he didn't disappear completely. He sent short messages to David asking about how the case was going. Never to Allison directly. She knew this because David mentioned it during a meeting. "Your friend is following everything closely," he commented casually. "He's not my friend." "Oh no? What is he then?" Allison didn't know how to answer. Jason, on the other hand, became more present every day. Not physically, but through messages, emails, and constant legal maneuvers. He contested every document, questioned every statement, and demanded access to information he had no right to. "He's trying to wear you down," David explained. "It's a common tactic. Drag out the process until you give up or accept an unfavorable agreement." "I'm not going to give up." "I know, but he doesn't know that yet." The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. Allison spent the days before reviewing documents, rehearsing answers, and trying to keep Grace oblivious to the chaos. It didn't work completely. "Mom, why are you nervous?" Grace asked the night before the hearing. "I'm not nervous." "Yes, you are. You bit the pen cap. You only do that when you're nervous." Allison looked at the pen in her hand. The cap was completely destroyed. "Tomorrow I have an important meeting," she explained. "About what?" "About you." "About me? What did I do?" "Nothing, sweetheart. It's just something adults need to resolve." "Adult things again." "That's right." Grace crossed her arms. "When I grow up, I'm going to create a law that prohibits adult things." "Good luck with that." On the morning of the hearing, Allison woke up to the phone ringing. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" "Allison." Jason's voice sounded from the other end, falsely friendly. "We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you outside of court." "Don't be like that. I just want to resolve this in a civilized way." "Civilized? You sued me." "I sued for the right to see my daughter. There's a difference." "Not to me." "Look, I'll be direct. I know you're involved with that investor, Benjamin Hawthorne, and I know he's financing your defense." Allison felt a chill in her stomach. "That's none of your business." "It will be when I mention it to the judge. A single mother suddenly with unlimited resources? Seems interesting, doesn't it?" "What do you want, Jason?" "An agreement. Shared custody. Alternating weekends and half the holidays." "No." "Allison, think about it. Do you really want to drag this out for months? Years, maybe? Think about Grace." "I think about Grace every day. Something you didn't do for 5 years." "People change. Some don't." There was silence on the other end of the line. "All right," Jason said finally, his voice losing its false cordiality. "If that's how you want it, we'll do it your way. But I'm going to mention your rich boyfriend in court, and I'm going to question where the money comes from. And I'm going to make the judge wonder if you're really the best option to raise our daughter." "She's my daughter. Legally, she's ours, and I'm going to prove it." The call ended. Allison stood in the middle of the kitchen, phone still in hand, heart racing. Grace appeared in the doorway, her school uniform already on. "Mom, who was it?" "Nobody important, sweetheart." "You're making that face again." "What face?" "The one like you ate something spoiled." Allison forced a smile. "I'm fine. Go brush your teeth." Grace obeyed, but looked back one last time before leaving. Allison leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. Jason was going to use Benjamin against her, and she had no idea how to defend herself against that. Her phone buzzed with a message from David. "Just received Jason's witness list. There's a name you need to see. Urgent." The name on Jason's witness list was Margaret Brooks. Aunt Margie. Allison's own sister. Allison read David's message 3 times, standing in the middle of the kitchen, while Grace brushed her teeth in the bathroom. Of all the things Jason could do, involving her own family was the lowest. But there was no time to process that. The hearing was in 2 hours. She dropped Grace off at school, promising she'd be there to pick her up at the usual time, and drove to the Chatham County Courthouse with her heart beating too hard. David was waiting for her at the entrance. "Did you see my message?" "I did. Margie is going to testify against me." "I know, but don't worry. Character witnesses rarely change the course of a case when the evidence is solid." "She's my sister, David." "I know, and I'm sorry, but now you need to focus." "Focus, right? While my own family stabs me in the back." "Technically, she hasn't stabbed anyone yet. Let's wait for the testimony." Allison took a deep breath. "Was that an attempt to make me laugh?" "It was. Did it work?" "No." "Fair enough. Let's go in." The courtroom was exactly as Allison imagined. Dark wood, American flag in the corner, a judge with the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Jason was already sitting on the other side, next to his lawyer, a thin man with narrow glasses who seemed to calculate every move. And in the benches behind Jason, there was Margie, her older sister, with the same nose and the same forehead, but with an expression Allison didn't recognize. "She really came," Allison murmured. "Keep focused," David replied quietly. "Don't let this shake you." The hearing began with the usual formalities. Jason's lawyer presented his arguments about paternal rights, claiming that his client had been systematically prevented from participating in his daughter's life. David counterattacked with 5 years of financial records, proof of expenses, and a communication history that showed exactly 0 contact attempts from Jason. "Your Honor," David said, "organizing the documents. We have here 60 months of records. No messages, no emails, no letters, no contact attempts. Not one call, not one birthday card. Not one transfer of any amount to contribute to the child's expenses." The judge looked at Jason. "Mr. Collins, do you have any explanation for this?" Jason shifted in his chair. "My daughter's mother made it clear she didn't want my presence. I respected that wish." "You respected it for 5 years?" The judge raised an eyebrow. "I was going through a difficult time. Personal problems." "What kind of problems?" Jason's lawyer interrupted. "Your Honor, my client prefers not to go into personal details at this time." "Convenient," David murmured, loud enough to be heard. The judge sighed. "Let's continue. Miss Brooks, do you have anything to add?" Allison stood up. Her legs were shaking, but her voice came out firm. "Your Honor, I've raised my daughter alone since the day she was born. I worked, studied, and did everything within my power to give her a stable life. Mr. Collins never tried to be part of that life. Not once. And now he shows up wanting rights he never bothered to exercise." "Did you ever prevent Mr. Collins from seeing his daughter?" "No, Your Honor. He simply never showed up." Jason shifted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable. His lawyer tried to redirect. "Your Honor, we would like to call our character witness, Margaret Brooks." Margie stood up and walked to the witness stand. Allison felt her stomach turn. "Mrs. Brooks," the lawyer began, "you are the defendant's sister, correct?" "Correct. And how would you describe your sister's relationship with the child's father?" Margie hesitated. She looked at Allison, then at Jason, then at the judge. "Complicated. Can you elaborate?" "My sister is stubborn. She doesn't accept help easily, and when Jason left, she closed all the doors." "So you confirm that your sister prevented Mr. Collins from participating?" Margie was silent for a long moment. "No," she said finally, "I don't confirm that." Jason's lawyer blinked. "Excuse me? I said she closed doors. I didn't say she locked them. Jason could have tried. He chose not to try." The silence in the courtroom was almost palpable. "Mrs. Brooks," the lawyer tried to recover, "weren't you called to testify in favor of Mr. Collins?" "I was. But you asked me to tell the truth, and the truth is that my sister raised that girl alone. I may not agree with all her choices, but I've never seen anyone work so hard for a child." Margie looked directly at Allison. "I'm sorry for coming here thinking I'd speak against you. I was wrong." Allison felt her eyes burn, but held back the tears. The judge banged the gavel. "Let's take a 15-minute break." During the break, David approached Allison with a contained smile. "That was unexpected. I thought so too. His witness just testified in your favor. That's gold." On the other side of the hallway, Jason was arguing heatedly with his lawyer. The lawyer was making frustrated gestures while Jason was getting redder and redder. When the hearing resumed, the judge was direct. "Considering the evidence presented and the witness testimony, I find no grounds to alter the current custody arrangement. Mr. Collins's petition is denied. Custody remains exclusively with Miss Brooks." Allison felt her legs weaken with relief. "However," the judge continued, "Mr. Collins may request supervised visits, provided he proves stability and genuine interest in the child's well-being. Review hearing in 6 months." Jason stood up abruptly. "This is unfair. Mr. Collins, I suggest you calm down. I have rights. And Miss Brooks has 5 years of responsibility. Sit down or you'll be removed." Jason looked at Allison with an expression that mixed anger and something else. Something calculated. "This isn't over," he said quietly, just for her to hear. "For me, it is," Allison replied. She left the courthouse with David by her side. The Savannah sun hit her face, and she breathed deeply for the first time in weeks. Margie caught up with her on the steps. "Allison, wait." Allison stopped, but didn't turn around. "What do you want, Margie?" "To apologize, really. You came here to testify against me, my own sister." "I know. Jason reached out to me, said he just wanted to see his daughter, and I believed him. I was naive." Allison finally turned around. "Why did you believe him and not me?" Margie lowered her eyes. "Because we've always fought, and I let that blind me." The silence between them lasted a few seconds. "It's going to take time," Allison said finally. "I know, but I want to try to fix it. We'll talk later. Right now I need to go pick up my daughter." Allison went down the steps and grabbed her phone. A message from Benjamin was waiting on the screen. David told me, "Congratulations, you won." She looked at the message for a long moment, then typed a response. "Thank you for everything. Can we talk?" The response came in seconds. "Whenever and wherever you want." And for the first time in weeks, Allison felt that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. Allison picked up Grace from school with a smile she couldn't contain. The girl noticed immediately. "Mom, why do you have that face?" "What face?" "That face like you won a prize." "I did win, in a way." "What prize?" "The prize of continuing to be your mother, officially." Grace frowned. "You've always been my mother." "I know, sweetheart, but now it's confirmed on paper." Adults are strange. They need paper to confirm obvious things. Allison laughed and hugged her daughter tight. "You're absolutely right." They went home, and Allison spent the afternoon trying to decide what to do about Benjamin's message. He had responded that he could meet her whenever and wherever she wanted. But where, and when, and what would she say? Grace solved the problem for her. "Mom, when is Benjamin going to show up again?" "I don't know, sweetheart." "You should call him." "Why do you think that?" "Because you look at your phone every 5 minutes. It's pretty obvious." Allison looked at the phone in her own hand. She hadn't even realized she was holding it. "I'm not looking every 5 minutes." "Yes, you are. I counted." "You counted?" "I told you I'm observant." Allison sighed. "All right, I'll send a message." "Finally. Don't need the commentary." "Yes, I do. You're slow with these things." Allison typed a quick message. "Tomorrow, 3 in the afternoon, at the usual cafe. Is that okay?" The response came in less than a minute. "I'll be there." Grace read over her mother's shoulder. "See, it wasn't that hard." "Grace, privacy. Privacy is for people who don't need help. You need help." Allison couldn't disagree. The next day, she dropped Grace off at school and arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. Benjamin was already there, sitting at the same table as always, with a coffee in his hand and an expression that mixed anxiety and hope. "You got here early," Allison said, sitting down across from him. "You did too." "I was nervous." "Me too." "Why were you nervous?" Benjamin smiled. "Because I spent the last 2 weeks not knowing if you'd want to see me again. And if I didn't, I would have respected it. But it would have been hard." Allison ordered a coffee with milk. The server brought it quickly, along with a cookie she hadn't ordered. "On the house," he explained. "You two look like you need something sweet." Allison and Benjamin looked at each other. "Are we that obvious?" she asked. "A little," the server replied before walking away. Benjamin laughed. "Apparently everyone knows we're having an important conversation except us." Apparently. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people have a lot to say and don't know where to start. Benjamin was the first to speak. "I need to tell you something." "Okay. I like you. Really. Not as a friend, not as someone who wants to help out of charity. I like you in a way that scares me." Allison felt her heart race. "Why does it scare you?" "Because I spent years avoiding this kind of feeling. It's easier to keep distance, safer. And now I don't want distance anymore, at least not from you." Allison looked at the coffee in her own hand. The steam rose in slow spirals, disappearing into the air. "Benjamin, I like you too, but I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of losing my independence, of depending on someone and then being abandoned again, of putting Grace in a situation where she gets attached and then suffers." "I understand. Do you really?" "Not completely, but I respect it." Allison looked at him. There was something in Benjamin's eyes that seemed genuine, something she hadn't seen in anyone for a long time. "I need time," she said finally. "How much time?" "I don't know, but I don't want to push you away while I figure it out." Benjamin nodded. "Then don't push me away. It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because you're rich, Benjamin, and I'm not. And that creates an imbalance I don't know how to deal with. Money doesn't have to be part of this, but it is. It always is." Benjamin leaned forward. "Let me tell you something. Before I met you, I spent my birthdays alone because I didn't trust anyone around me. Everyone wanted something. Everyone had an agenda. And then I walked into that restaurant, couldn't get a table, and a stranger invited me to sit with her. Without knowing who I was, without wanting anything in return. So what? So you treated me like a normal person. That's rare and valuable. More valuable than anything I own. Allison felt her eyes burn. Are you trying to make me cry? No, I'm trying to show you that the imbalance you see doesn't exist for me. But it exists for the rest of the world. The rest of the world doesn't matter. Easy to say when you have money. Benjamin laughed. Touché. The server came back to check if they needed anything. Allison ordered another coffee. Benjamin asked for the check. Are you leaving already? She asked. No, I just want to pay before you insist on splitting it. I was going to insist. I know, that's why I'm paying now. Allison shook her head. You're impossible. I know, it's part of my charm. They stayed at the cafe for another hour, talking about trivial things. Grace's school, Allison's work at the veterinary clinic, Benjamin's plans for the company. It was light, natural, as if the last few weeks of tension had never happened. When they got up to leave, Benjamin stopped at the door. Can I ask you something? Depends on what you're asking. Dinner. You and me. No improvising this time. A real reservation at a real restaurant on a date you choose. Allison thought for a moment. What about Grace? She can come if she wants, or we can get a babysitter. Whatever you prefer. Are you asking me on a date? Technically, yes. A real date, with a reservation and everything. Allison couldn't hide her smile. All right, but I choose the restaurant. Fair enough. And you can't spend a fortune. That's going to be difficult. Try. Benjamin extended his hand. Deal? Allison shook it. Deal. She left with a smile she couldn't contain. When she arrived to pick up Grace, the girl was waiting at the door. So, the girl asked. So what? Did you talk? We talked. And he invited me to dinner. Grace broke into a huge smile. Finally, can I go? I don't know yet. Please, I promise to behave. You never behave, but I can try. Allison laughed and hugged her daughter. We'll see. That night, as she put Grace to bed, Allison realized that, for the first time in a long while, she was looking forward to something good. And that, by itself, was already a victory. Gregory's was exactly as Allison remembered. Same dark wood floor, same golden lights, same bar in the center that looked like it came from another century. Only this time, there was a reservation. Table for 3, name Hawthorne, Benjamin told the host. It was the same young man from the first night. He looked at Benjamin, then at Allison, then at Grace, and a smile of recognition appeared on his face. The birthday gentleman, he said, who couldn't get a table. That's me. And the lady who saved him. I didn't save anyone, Allison corrected. I just offered a chair. Sometimes a chair is all someone needs. Grace tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mom, is he being philosophical? He is, sweetheart. What's philosophical? It's when adults say deep things nobody asked for. The host laughed and led them to a table in the corner with a view of the rest of the room. It was the best table in the restaurant, Allison realized. Of course it was. You asked for the best table, she said to Benjamin as they sat down. I asked for a good table. They chose this one. Coincidence, right? Total coincidence. Grace looked around with wide eyes. This place is fancy. You've been here before, Allison reminded her. I know, but now I'm paying attention. The waiter appeared with the menus. He was also the same one from the first night. He looked at the three of them and smiled. The family is back. Allison felt her face heat up. Benjamin cleared his throat. Actually, we're not. Yes, we are, Grace interrupted. Or almost. It's still in the testing phase. The waiter blinked. Testing phase? Yeah, like when you download an app and it's free for a month before you decide if you want to pay. Allison covered her face with her hands. Grace, where did you get that from? From that game ad on the tablet. Benjamin was clearly holding back laughter. So I'm in the testing phase? You are, Grace confirmed. But you're doing well. 7 out of 10 so far. Only 7? You lost points when you disappeared for 2 weeks. Fair enough. The waiter, clearly not knowing how to react, decided to focus on work. Can I take your drink orders? Water for her. Allison pointed to Grace. Wine for me. Red, please. And for you, sir? The same. Grace crossed her arms. Everyone drinks cool things except me. Water is cool, Allison said. Water is clear and boring, just like Tuesday. Benjamin raised an eyebrow. Tuesday? She didn't give up after your explanation, Allison murmured. The orders were placed. Grace chose macaroni and cheese, despite being in a sophisticated steakhouse. The waiter didn't question it. Allison ordered the same steak she had eaten on the first night. Benjamin did too. We're being nostalgic, he commented. We're being practical. We already know it's good. That too. While they waited for the food, Grace grabbed the crayons the restaurant provided for children and started drawing on the table paper. "What are you drawing?" Benjamin asked. "You two." "Can I see?" "When I'm finished." Allison looked at Benjamin. He was relaxed, smiling, completely different from the exhausted man who had walked into the restaurant weeks ago. "You look different," she said. "Different how?" "Lighter. I feel lighter." "Why?" Benjamin thought for a moment. "Because it's been a long time since I had something to look forward to, and now I do." "What are you looking forward to?" "This. You two. Nights like this." Allison felt her heart squeeze in a good way. "That was very sweet," Grace commented without looking up from her drawing. "Were you listening?" Allison asked. "I'm always listening. I already told you I have very good ears." "Privacy, Grace. Privacy is overrated." The food arrived. The steak was perfect. Grace's macaroni had enough cheese to feed an army, and the conversation flowed as if they had been doing this for years. At one point, Grace held up the drawing to show them. "I'm done." It was a crayon version of the three of them. Allison with brown hair and a purple dress she wasn't wearing, Benjamin tall and with a crooked smile, and Grace in the middle holding both their hands. "It's us," she explained. "A family." Allison looked at the drawing. Then she looked at Benjamin. Then she looked at her daughter. "Grace, we're not a family yet. Not yet, but we will be." "How do you know?" "Because I'm observant. And you two keep looking at each other all the time thinking nobody notices." Benjamin let out a laugh. "She's right," he admitted. "Don't help," Allison murmured. "I'm always right," Grace declared. "It's a gift." Dessert was served, a brownie with ice cream that Grace attacked as if she hadn't just eaten a whole plate of macaroni. Allison and Benjamin shared a lemon pie that was absurdly good. "Can I ask you something?" Benjamin said. "Sure." "Do you regret inviting me to sit down that night?" Allison thought for a moment. "No, not at all." "Why did you invite me?" "Because you looked lost. And I know what it feels like to feel that way." "And now? Now you look less lost." "Thanks to you." "Thanks to both of us," Grace corrected. "I helped too." "You helped a lot," Benjamin agreed. "I know, I'm essential." Allison shook her head, but she was smiling. When the check came, Benjamin paid without discussion. Allison didn't even try to argue this time. Some battles weren't worth it. They left the restaurant and walked to the parking lot. The night was cool, with a gentle breeze that made the tree leaves dance under the lamppost light. Grace ran ahead, jumping between the tree shadows. "She never stops," Benjamin observed. "Never. It's exhausting and wonderful at the same time." "Liked you." Allison looked at him. Was that a compliment? It was an observation. It sounded like a compliment. Maybe it was. They stopped near the car. Grace was a few meters ahead, entertained by a puddle of light on the ground. "Allison," Benjamin said, turning to her. "What?" "I want to do this right. I don't want to be just someone who shows up now and then. I want to be present. Really." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to try. A real relationship. With you, with Grace, with everything that means." Allison felt her heart race. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Even knowing how I am, especially knowing how you are." Grace appeared out of nowhere. "Are you having a moment?" "We are," Benjamin confirmed. "Can I participate?" "You're already participating." Grace smiled. "So are you going to date?" Allison looked at Benjamin. Benjamin looked at Allison. "We are," she said finally. Grace let out a scream that probably woke up every bird within a 5-kilometer radius. "I knew it. I said so. I predicted it." "You didn't predict anything," Allison said. "Yes, I did. From day one. Ask him." Benjamin raised his hands in defense. "She kind of predicted it. See?" Grace crossed her arms, triumphant. "I'm psychic." "You're not psychic." "Yes, I am. A relationship psychic." Allison laughed. Benjamin laughed. Grace celebrated as if she had won a championship. And there, in the parking lot of a restaurant where it all began, the three of them sealed something none of them expected to find. A family. In the testing phase, maybe, but a family nonetheless. 1 year later, Benjamin Hawthorne was turning 35, and for the first time in his adult life, he wasn't alone. Allison's apartment was decorated with balloons that Grace had personally chosen. They were all purple because, according to her, purple was the color of royalty, and Benjamin deserved to be treated like a king on his birthday. "Even if only for 1 day," she clarified. "Thanks for the clarification." Benjamin replied. You're welcome. I don't want it to go to your head. Allison appeared in the kitchen carrying a lopsided cake that had clearly been made at home. The frosting was uneven, the candles were slightly tilted, and there was a chocolate fingerprint in the corner. Before you say anything, she began. Grace helped. I can see that. What does that mean? Grace asked, her hands still dirty with chocolate. It means it's perfect, Benjamin replied diplomatically. Good answer, Allison murmured. You're learning. The past year had been a roller coaster of adjustments, discoveries, and moments none of the three expected. Benjamin had learned that living with a 6-year-old child meant never having complete silence again. Allison had learned that accepting help didn't mean losing independence. And Grace had learned she could have 2 adults paying attention to her at the same time, which she used to her advantage whenever possible. Can I open the presents now? Grace asked. The presents are mine, Benjamin reminded her. I know, but I like to watch. You like to watch, or you like to give your opinion? Both. At least she's honest, Allison commented. The presents were piled on the living room table. There weren't many, but they were carefully chosen. A book Benjamin had mentioned months ago, a mug with a photo of the 3 of them that Grace had insisted on making, and a gift certificate for a fishing equipment store that he would never use, but that Grace was certain he needed. Do you fish? Allison asked when she saw the certificate. No. Then why did she think you needed that? Because the salesman said every man needs to learn to fish. Grace explained, and you've never fished, so you need to learn. The logic is undeniable, Benjamin admitted. I know, I'm very logical. The cake was cut, the candles were blown out, and Benjamin made a wish he didn't tell anyone. Grace tried to guess for 10 minutes straight. Was it a new car? No. A beach house? No. A pet dinosaur? That doesn't even exist. But if it did, would you want one? Probably not. You're very hard to please. Allison sat down next to Benjamin on the couch while Grace devoured her 3rd slice of cake. How are you? She asked quietly. Good. Really good, actually. Strange, isn't it? What? Being good. Genuinely good. Without waiting for something to go wrong. Benjamin thought for a moment. A little, but I'm getting used to it. Me too. Grace appeared in front of them, her face covered in chocolate. Are you having a moment again? We are, Allison confirmed. You have a lot of moments. That's what couples do. You're not married. Not yet, Benjamin said without thinking. Allison turned to him. Not yet? Benjamin felt his face heat up. I meant? What did you mean? That, maybe, someday. Grace crossed her arms. Are you asking Mommy to marry you? No, I mean, not now. I mean... You're making that fish face again, Grace observed. What fish face? The one you make when you don't know what to say. Mouth open, eyes wide. Allison was clearly trying not to laugh. Relax, she said. Nobody's pressuring you. I am, Grace disagreed. I want to be a flower girl. Grace, nobody's getting married. Not yet, he said not yet. That means it's gonna happen. That doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does. I studied at school. I know what words mean. Benjamin buried his face in his hands. I created a monster. You didn't create me, Grace corrected. My mom created me. You just showed up later. Thanks for reminding me. You're welcome. Allison finally let the laughter escape. Welcome to the family, Benjamin. Am I still in the testing phase? No, you passed. When did that happen? About 6 months ago. I just hadn't told you. Why not? Because it was fun to see you nervous. Grace nodded. It was very fun. You two are terrible. We know, they said in unison. The rest of the night passed in a blur of laughter, conversation, and more cake than any person should consume. At some point, Grace fell asleep on the couch, still holding a purple balloon she refused to let go of. Allison carried her to the bedroom and came back to find Benjamin looking out the window. What are you thinking about? She asked. Last year, the restaurant, how everything changed. Regrets? Not at all. Good, because now it's too late to go back. I don't want to go back. Allison approached and stood beside him. You know what I realized? She said. What? That you walked into that restaurant looking for solitude and you found exactly the opposite. Sometimes the universe knows what it's doing. Or sometimes a bored single mother decides to invite a stranger to sit down because her daughter was telling the same unicorn story for the 3rd time. Benjamin laughed. That too. But it worked. It worked. They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the city lights through the window. Benjamin, what? Happy birthday. Thank you. And about that not yet from earlier. Yes, Allison smiled. Ask again in 6 months. Benjamin felt his heart race. Really? Really? But only if you pass the next tests. What tests? The ones Grace is going to invent. She's already planning. That worries me. It should. Benjamin looked at the woman beside him. The woman who had transformed a lonely birthday into something completely different. The woman who had shown that accepting help wasn't weakness, that family could be built in unexpected ways, and that sometimes the best thing that can happen is not getting a table at a crowded restaurant. I love you, he said. Allison blinked, surprised. That came out of nowhere. It did, but it's true. She was silent for a moment. Then she smiled. I love you too. Really? Really? But if you tell Grace, she'll make a PowerPoint presentation about it and show it to the whole school. She knows how to make PowerPoint? She learned last week, and she's dangerously excited about it. Benjamin laughed. And there in the living room of a simple apartment in Savannah, surrounded by purple balloons and leftover lopsided cake, he realized he had found exactly what he didn't know he was looking for. A family. A home. A new beginning. Who would have thought that a lonely birthday and a denied table would be the beginning of such a beautiful family? What was your favorite part of this journey? Do you believe that nothing happens by chance? Comment, I believe. I really want to know your opinion. And subscribe to the channel. Your support helps our channel grow a lot and bring more content like this. And until the next story,